Hey, what's up guys? So I want to talk about a game mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! That was never fully utilized, and that was the columns in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you guys are unfamiliar with columns, it's a game for Sega Game Gear. No, a column is basically, just straight up and down. So right here, this would be considered like a column right here. I know in Dueling Network, pretty much whenever you set spell trap, like this is number 1 right here, like this will always be number 1, and like it's either to the left or the right is number 2, like it'll automatically set them right there. In higher level of Yu-Gi-Oh! There are, things to take into consideration where your opponent sets cards. Certain players set things to the right, or sometimes they'll set them to the left of them, but there's never anything that uses columns. There's not an archetype that just uses the columns, but there are cards that actually support the column. It's not really an archetype, but like the playstyle in Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's go over some of them, and I kind of want to talk about columns in general. But first off, Rampaging Rhino. So once per turn, this card can move to an adjacent unoccupied monster card zone. If this card attacks the monster in the same column, card gains 500 attack during the damage step. So, that's pretty awesome. He boosts by 500. It's not the best, but, your opponent can just, place a monster pretty much wherever they want. I'm not sure if you noticed, but in a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, they don't allow you to select where you want to put your card zone. So that's kind of interesting. And what I've noticed is, what's kind of funny, and it's trolling, you can use a card like Blasting Fuse, and basically, you activate this card when all 4 zones of the card's column are occupied and destroy all cards in this column. And what's funny is you can really use this card, you can kind of abuse this card in like the video games, I've noticed, because your opponent, like, they always summon the monster, it's always in the middle, because there's 5 card zones, and they always put, they summon a monster, it just summons to the middle. They don't like summon to the side. You can't even, in fact, I'm pretty sure in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can actually place the card wherever you want. To my knowledge, you can place the card wherever you want. But in the video games, it always just sets it right in the middle. So you can really take advantage of Blasting Fuse, which is kind of hilarious. This card technically can be a plus, like if you destroy a floater monster. A floater monster would be something like a face down Sangan, or something that when it's destroyed, you get to search out something like the TGs. And I'm thinking, this card wouldn't be that bad in TGs. Like, if someone summons, like, Thunder King and then sets a back row, because in Dueling Network, it always sets the cards, since there's 5 cards, it always sets it, in that column. It'll always set it in the first one, the very middle one. And, like, you could just use Blasting Fuse. So I don't really think this card is that bad on Dueling Network. Perhaps me making this video will make people run Blasting Fuse. But legitimately, I think it's kind of trolly, but it actually isn't that bad if you can kind of play it correctly, because this is a good chainable card, because maybe your opponent already has, 1 back row, they got a monster that's, too strong, you can't run over, and then they go MSC, you go Chain Blasting Fuse. I don't think this card is that bad for the video games, like I mentioned before. But there's a couple other cards, like Alien Infiltrator, where it can, like, attack directly, but it's only 800. There's another card, Storm Shooter, so once per turn, you can select and activate one of the effects. So you can move this card to, an adjacent unoccupied monster zone, or you can return 1 spell or trap monster. Oh wait, you can return 1 spell, trap, or monster card on your opponent's side of the field to the in the same column as his card to the owner's hand. So it's like a bounce back card, but it has to be in the same column. But pretty much, you can bounce back, whatever card, but this card probably won't see any play. I think this card goes with Samorg. I think it came in like the Samorg structure deck. I'm not talking about Dark Samorg. I'm talking about like the it's like Samorg Divinity or something like that. It's some other card. It never really saw any play. We already went over Rampaging Rhino, so I guess he's here twice. There's also Sinet Switch. So once per during your main phase, you can move 1 monster on your side of the field to an adjacent unoccupied monster card zone. So I'm not actually sure how you would do this in Dueling Network. I don't think you even can do it on Dueling Network. You'd have to like summon a monster and then like bring it back to your hand and like summon it again. Like you'd have to like summon multiple times in order to kind of get the monster to where you'd want it. Or you can place tokens on the field. That would be like legitimately a way to use it. But legitimately, I only think that the only card that actually would ever see any play is something like Blasting Fuse. I mean, your opponent, they set 1. Back row, they set a monster. If those 2 are on the same column, you basically can use Blasting Fuse however you want, because basically all you need is to summon your monster in that zone. To my knowledge, you can set your spell and trap card zones wherever you want, but if I'm wrong, let me know on that, because from what I know, you can set your spell and traps, and you can summon your monster wherever you'd like, but I don't think it has to be in the middle. I mean, I tried to look for these rules, but I couldn't find them in the book, but, the book doesn't talk about, like, a lot of the stuff as far as rulings, but yeah, this is just an interesting concept in Yu-Gi-Oh! That no one really used, and I don't think any deck has really taken advantage of it. I'm hoping in the future they'll make something that revolves around columns, just because it'd be kind of fun, and it kind of makes up the game just a little bit, because a lot of new mechanics in this game are being introduced. Like we just had the XYZs being introduced, I'd say, within like the last year or two. But yeah, Blasting Fuse, pretty funny card to troll around with on Dueling Network, because it literally is not that bad of a card. But anyways, thanks for watching. Yugioh Dragon signing out.